Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, sponsored by Brendan Bardick Real Estate Coaching, where our mission is to train the most elite real estate agents and coaches on earth. Today we're going to be talking about embrace the suck. This is the fundamental things that every single agent needs to learn as early as possible to have massive success in real estate. Now, embrace the suck comes from a military slang word which means to consciously accept or appreciate something that is extremely unpleasant but unavoidable for forward progression. So again, unavoidable for forward progression. So basically those things that we know are not going to be probably the most pleasurable things that we're wanting to do, but we know that are going to produce us the massive results that we need to be a top producing or an elite agent in the real estate industry. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think about that is you have to start out every day with that type of mindset going into it, going, look, I know these things aren't the most pleasant things, but these are going to be the things that are going to create my world and have the life that I want to live. So anytime you're embracing the suck, you have to have a constant reminder of, why am I doing this? What is that big why? What's pushing me every single morning to get up, get out, and get some, and get this done? And that also starts with a few very simple things, which break down to your morning routine. So starting every single morning with what we call the lifesavers, which comes directly from the Miracle Morning, where you're basically practicing this ritual, and it is a ritual of your morning routine that's going to get your mindset ready to rock and roll so that you can take on this type of schedule and lifestyle to make sure that you can have massive success. So if you haven't read The Miracle Morning, check it out. It's a game changer. It's going to explain all of that. We talk about it in another episode called Top Producer Schedule, which we kind of break that down more into detail. But definitely look into that because it's going to really help you get the mindset that you need. So the next thing that comes to mind is then you have to have your weekly time block schedule put together, focusing on the things that you know are going to basically be the things that, well, for example, lead generation, outbound lead generation. We all know that it's not the most enjoyable, but a lot of that comes down to mindset of how you're going into it. One of the things that I coach to and I try to help agents with all the time is understanding that we need to master our morning, meaning that we don't schedule a single appointment ever before 12 o'clock. Ever. I don't care what that is. That time is the most sacred time that you could possibly have in your entire life. And that's dedicated to outbound lead generation and updating your database, right? So you have to build everything around a mindset of what you're willing and not willing or allowing to have happen to you. So agents go, what if I have an inspection? And what if I have this? Hey, look, I get it. Everything's going to come up that you're going to have some excuse that sounds a heck of a lot better than doing any outbound lead generation. But as soon as you allow that to happen, that whole roller coaster of sometimes I have income, sometimes I don't. I have 3 closings, I have 2 closings. Without building that sense of consistency, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to do that. Then the rest of your morning needs to consist of a few very, very important things. And one of those is going to start with role play every single morning. So you're going to be practicing role play. You're going to be going through your scripts, your dialogues. You're going to be identifying a role play partner that you are going to be practicing all of these skills with. That's extremely important, is to make sure that you're practicing at the level you want to play. Then the next thing is you're going to review your goals. So you're going to look at your goals that you've set for the year, for the month, for the week even, and sometimes for the day, so that you're lined up for what you're trying to accomplish in making sure that that's going to happen, okay? Then the next thing that you're doing is you're going to recite your affirmations. You have to get your mindset wrapped around what it's going to take today for me to go into, this schedule and make sure that I'm going to have my mind prepped and basically manifest everything that I want good to happen that day. So some affirmations for top producers range from everything from, hey, the next call is going to be my next appointment. Price reductions are easy for me is a great one. I achieve my goals. Every no is one step closer to a yes. These are the type of affirmations that, myself, top producers, and agents that are making, these daily calls are telling themselves, instead of getting on and going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to jump on and try to make some calls today. And, I hope no one is mean to me. And, oh my gosh, right? You go into that, you're going to get out exactly what you're putting into it, is that kind of response. The other thing is, I think of a mindset that is 100% mindset, not a 98, not a 96%, not a 92%, 100% mindset. And with that mindset, what that means is that I'm heading into this situation knowing that if one of the images I used to think of is if somebody had a gun, and I know this might be explicit for some people, but a gun to one of my family members' head and said, if you don't schedule an appointment by the end of today, I'm going to shoot them. What would I do that day? Right? What would I do that day to make sure that no matter what, that did not happen? And I think that's the problem with some of us, is we just don't feel, especially early on, that it's that serious. And if you don't think about it being that serious, then you're not really that serious about it. Because if you really think about it, you're kind of allowing somebody to shoot your loved one in the head, especially if it's a wife, a spouse, kids, or whatever it is. If you're just going into this half-heartedly because you're not doing the things that are going to produce the life for them that you should be, to make sure that they have everything they want. So really think about that piece of it. Is I've got until 5 o'clock and the clock is ticking before the bomb goes off. And I've got to do X, Y, Z, otherwise that happens. Then the next thing you need to think about is the tools you're going to need to have success with this type of profession, right? So the type of software you're going to need, the headset, scripts, affirmations, the kind of environment you're going to need to build around yourself to make sure that you're able to do this at a high level. I always had a mirror in front of me, scripts. I would stand up, I would pace, I would try to keep my energy as high. The mirror was just so I could see, my energy level and make sure I was smiling, and I was using my hands when I was talking so I could get across the energy that much better for, every call that I would make. So those tools are going to be very important. And then make sure that you just don't have any distractions, right? We just don't want any distractions. So how can you isolate yourself? How can you make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not going to be interrupted for the X amount of session you're going to need to be doing every morning, which hopefully for you will be 2 to 3 hours, to make sure that you're hitting your goals and your targets for conversations you need to have. Now, that brings us to our next piece, which is conversations. How many conversations do I need to be having every day about buying or selling real estate to have massive success? And once you identify these target numbers, and you can only do this by having a tracking sheet. We do offer, some of these tools for you. So feel free to check out Brendan Bardick Real Estate Coaching for the tracking sheet, our scripts, all that fun stuff. Now, you got to track what you're doing. And some people go, tracking, that sounds like a job. I don't want to, I got into this to be free. That's fine, right? But you're going to need to have some data. You need to know what you're doing. I know people that take 20 pins and put them in a jar, and then every time they make a conversation, they take one over and they put it into the other jar, right? Or cup rather. And so they do it that way. I know people that use super bounce balls. So every day they have a bucket of super bounce balls. Or a clear jar. They take one from there and put it into the other one for every conversation. And they know as soon as that one side of the pins or the bouncy balls get to the other side, they did what they were supposed to do for that day. Now, of course, the higher level conversations you're going to have is going to make it that much better. But those are going to be extremely important, right? So taking a look at how are you mentally tracking that? And then again, writing on the back of your tracking sheet, perhaps objections you heard, things that threw you off, things that you're like, oh man, I didn't see that coming and I need to work on that one the next time I have. role play, right? And it's always good to have different role play partners to practice with, maybe from not only your office, but reach out to people on Facebook groups and all of that. There's plenty of people that want to practice around the country. At any given time, I probably had 5 to 7 throughout the country, and I actually had one in Canada that I would practice with that really helped me sharpen that skill set so that when I was on the phone, I was being effective and I was being, powerful, and my mindset was right. And it just gave me, to be honest with you, it just gave me a sense of confidence, right? That I knew what I was going into. Therefore, it wasn't such a chore, and I was almost kind of excited about it at the end of the day. So make sure you're tracking everything you're doing. Then you're going to need to identify your lead sources, right? So whether you're doing expireds, for sale by owners, just sold, the NED list, center of influence, past clients, affiliated business partners, internet lead sources, whatever you're doing, you need to identify your lead sources and make sure you're just doing a check down every single day and hitting them one by one. Right? So that's going to take you up until about 10:45. Then you're going to take a break. Right now, you're going to take a break, go outside, jump on ESPN, call one of your other friends, talk to somebody, have a snack, drink some water, whatever it is that you need to do, get your head right. Then come back from 11 to 12. You're going to be doing lead follow-up and database entry. So you're going to be updating the machine that you have. So getting it all in there. Then you're going to go into role play, right? So now you've got role play for a second time of the day, but now you're going to be going back through everything that, kind of caught you off during your lead generation session. From there, you're going to have a great lunch, right? Re-energize for the afternoon, get ready to rock and roll, make sure that everything is good to go for that. So from 12:30 to 1:30 lunch, and then the remainder of the day from 1:30 till 7 o'clock at night, you're on appointments. Now, if you don't have any appointments, then you continue to lead generate. And that's the big piece. People go, oh, I finished that morning, and in the afternoon, I'm at happy hour by 2 o'clock having margaritas or whatever it is. No, you've got to make sure. Now, you can reward yourself if you hit your appointment goal or you hit your conversation goal and it's Thursday and you did everything right and you crushed it. Then go have some margaritas, go play golf, go have fun, go do whatever you want. Reward yourself for the accomplishments that you did because it's going to pay off later. But sure as heck, don't cut yourself short. If you know you're short and it's Friday, well, unfortunately, you're making these up on Saturday and Sunday. Because again, remember, you committed to 100%, not 98%. Okay? So those are the things that you're going to be looking at on a daily basis. Now, sprinkled into that schedule, 2 different things you're going to be working on. So 5 to 7 on Thursdays, you're going to be doing your direct mail and client for life systems. So handwritten note cards, cards of gratitude, telling people why you care about them, why they're amazing, all this fun stuff, right? So that's going to be something. And then the other thing is you can start to work on what we call the 10-25-90. Now, I do an entirely different episode on the 10-25-90, but basically it means that every 10th of the month, you're going to do a client giveaway. The 25th of the month, you're going to do a local business spotlight. And every 90 days, you're going to do a client appreciation event. So that's the 10-25-90. Now, taking a look at all of these things, people go, my goodness, that sounds like a lot. Now, on Saturday and Sunday, you can reserve those days for either open houses. Now, again, I'm not saying you need to work 7 days a week. If you're looking to create a small business out of nothing, which most agents don't understand is that's what you're doing as an entrepreneur, it's going to take some hours. So you got to get away from this 5-day work schedule, especially in the beginning, because you need to build up to that, right? And really build out this big, life that you wanted to have yourself. And it's going to suck more in the beginning, and then it's going to get better over time. And soon it'll get to the point where you're really having it under control, and you have so many inbound leads, and you're having great conversations with past clients. Embracing the suck doesn't have to be for a very long time, but it will give you the fastest capacity to get to where you want to go as quickly as possible, right? It'll get you to where you want to go as quickly as possible. So make sure you're thinking about that. Make sure you're going, okay, am I ready to dive into this? Am I ready to really commit to 100%, not 98? And am I ready to just go ahead and go, look, This is going to suck for a little while, but it's going to be so worth it. And I'm going to have the career that I wanted. I'm never going to have to work for anybody ever again. I'm going to set my own schedule. I'm going to travel whenever I want. I'm going to have all of those things that I always promised my loved ones that I was going to provide for them or myself. I'm going to take those trips. I'm going to have that freedom. That's what embracing the suck is all about, is taking a little bit of pain in the beginning to really enjoy this in the long run. So I hope that helped. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to go to Brendan Bardick Real Estate Coaching for additional tools. And as always, I wish all of you great success.